Alan's conservative countdown to AGI just went up another notch. We are officially 96% of the way there to AGI. You guys know, if you've been following my channel, when I did the first video, we were in the 60s, I want to say, at least this early, like low 70s. And it's crazy that we're going to watch it get to 100 soon. Now, of course, that means embodied general intelligence. So it's the robots now that are really pushing it. But this Gemini 3 and Claude and the adaptive learning paper from Google. China's got a humanoid robot that side flips away from arrows. No kidding. Look at that thing flipping over like that. Holy crap. New hyper-realistic AI mods make gameplay. This is a video game that you're watching with an effect on it. Makes it look so close to real. I mean, look really close at their feet. You'll see they just sort of slide. That's not footage from a game. There is a parade of sanitation AI autonomous robots in Shenzhen. So yeah, that's a thing. People came out for it. Fascinating new architecture for an AI model that thinks in diffusion, but it talks in tokens. Two worlds collide. We're going to talk about some additional small changes that you can make to an AI architecture that makes it think more like a human brain. I feel like it gives us some insight into ourselves. GeoVista is a new AI model that lets an AI agent zoom, pan, and reason its way around real-world street view. Yeah, and if you're wondering why that matters, you can probably guess why. It's geolocation, guessing where a photo was taken. And then when it has a guess, it can actually go to Google Maps, look at Street View, and verify if it's right on its own. So it can just search all day long until it finds out where that photo was taken. New York's looking into creating a very interesting law. It would require some sort of a website like Amazon to actually tell you if the price had been adjusted by artificial intelligence to maximize profits from you. And you know what? If I saw this under something I was going to buy in all caps, this price was set by an algorithm using your personal data, I would actually appreciate that. I would immediately go to a VPN, change it to the poorest part of the country, and go check the price again. And if enough people did that, maybe prices that try to squeeze the most out of us would backfire on them. There's a new AI model trained on prison phone calls, and it's looking for the planning of crimes from prison. Yeah, listening to phone calls en masse to detect and understand when crimes are being thought about or contemplated, so that you catch them much earlier in the cycle. Reminds me of Minority Report. But first, will you press the hype button on YouTube right now? It would mean you'd have to be on the mobile app on your probably iPhone or Android. Swipe right next to the comments, and if this video is published in the last 7 days, so you're catching it new, and you haven't used one of your 3 hypes, those hypes have a lot of points attached to them. But if you don't feel like giving me your hype, I'm still going to give you the best analysis of Alan's conservative countdown at 96%. It went up. All right, this thing has not budged for a little while. You can see back in September, we got to 95, and then it sort of stalled out because it's really about machines now. It's not just how good you do on one of these like LLM tests. So I took this paper pretty serious. It came out of Google, Adaptive Learning, DeepMind's Nested Learning. This is a modified version of the very famous transformer that looks a whole lot more like the human brain. One big change, like the human brain, it can continually learn and memorize during inference. So as it's thinking and it's thinking to itself, it's learning about itself and updating its thoughts. It's not just locked in. Mimicking human neuroplasticity. Let's go look at this paper. All right, so to me, this resonated pretty hard. It just feels like how evolution it seems like we have this like reptilian brain that just instinctively does things and it sort of wants food. And then we have this other kind of like other brain that sits on it and sometimes notices and then sometimes gets scared and doesn't notice, and it feels sort of weaker but also can plan much further into the future and can also kind of notice itself. This is when you are meditating and you sort of think about how your body feels. It's almost like the upper brain is feeling what the smaller brain is. And you hear about these metaphors like the elephant and the rider, where the elephant is sort of your core feeling, your emotion, and it makes you think something, and then sometimes the rider can guide the elephant. But honestly, if the elephant wants to go somewhere, the rider is not strong enough to overpower it. So this team at Google looked at the transformer, their invention that has been so successful, and then they thought about it in terms of nested learning. And nested learning is fundamentally a different way of designing a machine learning model so that it can learn continuously without forgetting what it learned before. I can see why people are calling it a breakthrough. I mean, I'm not technical enough to be in the weeds and truly know, but it resonates on a high level with me. Treating a neural network's architecture in layers and its training algorithm, the optimizer, as two separate things. So, like one level can actually just be instinctively reacting, and one is watching it, and another one's watching it. Nested learning treats the entire model as a system of nested, multi-level optimization problems, each with their own context flow and its own update rhythm. This connection just came to me. It's not in the paper, but you think about the different sleep waves that you go through. There's like the alpha waves, the beta waves. It feels a little bit like that. This context flow has some sort of a similar rhythm where it's going through and updating these nodes, but it's not just like a 1 trillion node model and you just update them all equally. There's sort of waves, right? Some are going slower, some are going faster, and they're in different sections, and they're actually learning. The ones that are going slower, that are higher up, are actually kind of learning and changing things slower based on the ones that are moving faster underneath. To me, that sort of feels like what might be happening when we sleep. Now, in practice, this means that there is a continuum memory system where different parts of the model update at different speeds, fast adapting components handle new information, slow updating components consolidate stable knowledge, and the Google team actually built a prototype architecture. They're calling it HOPE, and it uses this nested learning architecture. And they showed in the prototype that it outperforms standard models on language modeling, reasoning, and long context tasks. Could this be a big breakthrough? I mean, Alan's conservative countdown to AGI is as good of a countdown as I know, and he thinks so. Also, keep in mind, if Google Gemini 4 is built with this new architecture, it's train once and deploy. There won't be, I guess, a Google Gemini 5. It'll just be 4. Just learning. The 4th version will just be off on its own learning like a human brain. And if that paradigm scales, they'll just tack more and more servers to it, and people will just talk to it more and more, and it will be learning in real time just like a human brain. So that'll be wild. All right, this is a humanoid robot side flipping away from an arrow. Didn't think I'd see that this week. It's definitely got some iRobot vibes to it. You just shoot at it and it's like whoosh, like ninja away. How scary would that be? This is the MagicBot Z1. Seems like it's got some Matrix inspired movements there. All right, so the future of ninja robots coming out of China. I mean, that, spinning roundhouse kick looks pretty impressive. Okay, so here it is. Man, this is just getting so crazy. I mean, why not? You could dress this thing up as any kind of a character at Disneyland, and I guess it would walk around. I mean, if something's that agile, could it not be doing almost everything humans do soon? I mean, it looks like it could easily sit in a car and, grab the handle like a human would. I mean, I guess it doesn't have hands, but that's one thing. But its feet could do the pedals. And it certainly can ninja away. And God knows what happened if you put a weapon on that thing. Put it in the battlefield. Ugh, breakdance competitions. Thing's about to do a headstand. I mean, that's wild to not be simulated. Look at how fast it is in real time, just jumping out of the way. All right, so NBA 2K, a video game where you play basketball with what we think is AI. No one's quite sure, but pretty sure it's not a real-time mod. I think this is something that you've ran through Kling or some sort of AI tool that makes it more realistic. But wow, why wouldn't at some point the computation be there to make this real? And why wouldn't people sit around and watch this like a real basketball game? I mean, this is a video. These are two people that can control all the characters on screen. It's a video game, right? You could have all 10 people watching a game like this. They could all have headsets on, be in different parts of the country, and completely feel realistic. I mean, you'll notice a little bit of weird sliding, and if you kind of get close, the ref will sort of pause in strange positions for a little too long, and of course the audience. But I mean, I didn't think we were going to be here at the end of 2025. Kind of even makes me wonder why even have another Grand Theft Auto. Just put mods like this on the older ones and make them look completely real. Like, they'll probably be ready to run in real time by the time, mid next year, I think is when GTA 6 is going to come out. When is the estimated release date for Grand Theft Auto 6? Well, yeah, not until November, almost the end of next year. Check out the sanitation robot competition in China right now. Shenzhen was having a great day with cleaning robots, showing off to the city how autonomously these things can be wandering around 24/7, recharging themselves, keeping the streets immaculate. To be honest, it's one of the coolest use cases for AI. I'm like, why? I would love a city to be really clean. I mean, I'm worried about pollution in big cities. I went to India once and I felt like it was really bad there. But even in major cities I've lived in, it's not a pleasure. Like, I don't like seeing garbage on the ground. I feel like it takes away from the walkability. I would love a city that has something like this, and probably a lot cheaper than having people walking around doing it. And I don't know. I wish we had parades like that in the US. I wish people got excited about cleaning autonomously. Let me know in the comments if you would attend that parade, if it was easy to get to for you. People should be doing this job. It's an interesting comment. I wonder what his thinking is there. Miss Robot Universe 2025. Cleaning bots are the real MVPs of the city. Yeah, maybe. China thinks showing its dystopian nightmare of a country is a good thing, huh? Oh yeah, clapback. Dystopia in the US, poor people living on the sidewalks. In China, poor people living in homes. I don't know. I'm not going to weigh in on that. All right, now we're already on a roll with hybrid architecture. So let's talk about something coming out of NVIDIA. A new paper, TIDAR, not to be confused with TLDR, but it is a proposal for a new hybrid architecture for language generation that combines two existing paradigms. We talk about these all the time. Diffusion-based models, in this case, a diffusion-based token drafting model, and a normal auto-regressive model like next token sampling, right? Whenever I think of images, I'm like, oh, it's probably a diffusion model. And then whenever I think of, ChatGPT or Gemini, I think it's probably auto-regressive. It's, next token. Now, sometimes I hear about diffusion models that work with text, and that's interesting because you actually get the entire paragraph right away, and then it kind of reorganizes. It's like fuzzy. Sometimes the text is kind of wonky and it kind of like reorganizes itself into a final paragraph, but it's also super fast. I don't think it works as well in general for intelligence tests, but combining the two where the model maybe thinks as a diffusion and then it talks at the end, well, that might make sense. So diffusion language models excel at parallelization, so they can get all the right tokens onto the screen really, really fast in a sense. Like they can quickly get you some of the way there. And that can dramatically speed up a query to some kind of a future, Gemini that's built this way. But then you usually get a little bit less quality. So these models actually generate tokens one by one with high coherence and quality by combining the two in a way where there's a single forward pass. So it thinks via diffusion, drafting many token candidates all in parallel, and then it talks via autoregression, so sampling the final tokens sequentially. And what happens when you actually build this thing and test it? You get 4.7 to 5.9x more tokens per second. So it would dramatically drop the cost, and it would keep quality almost the same. And if you don't have to trade off speed for quality, that means we'll get really fast, really intelligent responses. All right, next up, let's talk about these small changes that make some AI systems more brain-like than others. The pattern I'm seeing with innovations across the board right now in AI is what kind of tweaks make the architecture a little more brain-like, a little more human. So this was a perfect study coming out of Johns Hopkins University. Scientists discovered that simple tweaks to certain AI systems make them more, quote, brain-like, meaning they can respond to images in a way that more closely matches human and all primate brain activity. And they can do this even before the AI is trained on any data. So as we grow AIs, we don't program them, we grow them. When they train in a way that's more human, they also tend to think in a way that's more human. Now, they tested dozens of neural networks built from three common AI architectures: transformers, fully connected nets, and convolutional nets. And they found that only in the convolutional style network, when they made some human-like adjustments, it showed more brain-like activity. All right, now there wasn't like a one sort of change here that made all the difference. It was dozens of small little changes, but it was all kind of about this, what they would call scaling the dimensionality of a certain feature, meaning they expanded the number of internal neurons or feature maps in a way where the geometry looked more like what they would see in a human brain. So instead of just letting it learn everything, it sort of is learning, and then they're in their sort of pushing it in a way or poking at it in a way that seems more human at the beginning, so that it has to work harder to get away from a human-like shape, and it just tends to sort of build around that human-like shape a little bit more. You know, because we're talking about shape in terms of like this multi-dimensional geometry, like a latent space. It's, you know, hard to imagine, but something like vectors in a three-dimensional space just scale to many, many dimensions. So it implies that there's something about a convolutional neural network, that kind of an architecture, and the way that it's got a local receptive field that makes it a little bit closer to how biological vision works. So even though it's not the most powerful model that we know of, in some ways, it might be the most human-like. Next up, let's talk about GeoVista. It is a newly introduced agentic model for geolocation. You know, we talked in the last video about how it could be helpful to have all the hotel rooms in the world easily trackable on AI because of, you know, trafficking and some dangerous stuff that happens in hotel rooms, but also a lot of normal stuff that happens in hotel rooms too. So I always feel a little bit sort of mixed when we talk about this stuff, but you know what? It's a new model. You should know it exists. And what it does is it figures out where on Earth any photo is taken. And its magic is combining visual reasoning in a way that we have seen before with some external tools that we have not seen it use before. So it can use a two-stage training pipeline. Supervised fine-tuning to figure out where it thinks something is. It does that through reinforcement learning. But then during inference, when it's trying to actually solve a problem, it can go to a bunch of different map systems, and it can, you know, zoom in on a part of the image that it thinks that it should be in, and then just look and pan around. And if it's not happy or it doesn't get a, you know, great contrast to what it thinks or a great confidence in what it thinks, then it'll go back and it'll search for some more. And the GeoBench model includes these high resolution photos, panoramas, satellite images from all around the world. But if you think about what a human PI is doing, zooming in, checking, scanning around, thinking, verifying, comparing, that's what this model is just doing. And you just go to sleep at night and it just searches all over the globe until it's really confident where something came from. And instinctively, it already kind of knows how to narrow it down. And then it just goes and verifies it. And then I guess you wake up and it's like, hey, here's my 3 top candidates. So GeoBench using GeoVista significantly outperforms other open source agentic models at this problem, and even approaches the performance of closed source heavyweights like GPT-5 and Gemini 2.5 Flash. So that means people could, because it's open source, they could potentially run this. And, you know, it's not like Google or OpenAI would be able to see, you know, what somebody was searching for. I mean, maybe that's good if you think a company shouldn't be, you know, holding that kind of information, but you could argue that a company like that might be able to stop somebody if they were doing something suspicious, and now it could be done at home. But, you know, that's the open source, you know, closed source debate. It's not exactly a right answer for that one. But in the safer legal things, travel planning, historical photo analysis, climate or earth science, they could all use tools like this. Journalism, social media. Build it into your pipeline now if you want. Next up, in New York, there is a new law that now requires companies to clearly disclose when they use an algorithm and personal data to set a price. You know, every time I cover a policy, I feel like there's two sides to it. But this case, it just was like, yeah, like, just like, don't sell poison to people. Like, tell them if an algorithm is squeezing them. I kind of feel like we absolutely need this, and I hope it does become national. It just, if I go to any kind of an Amazon or a shopping system, and under the price, it says, I adjusted this because I know a bunch about you and I think you'll pay more. I absolutely want to know that. I want, like, right now I assume prices are the same for all of us. That's what the free market has brought the price to. But if, I don't know, I have some sort of hobby and I'm willing to pay more for something than someone else, and the algorithm knows that and it does that, I should at least get notified. So the practice of, you know, quote, personalized pricing, or sometimes called surveillance pricing, is now required to be labeled. If a company tweaks a price based on a shopper's browsing history, location, purchase history, or other personal data, it must display this notice. I even think it needs to be in all caps. This price was set by an algorithm using your personal data. I mean, imagine seeing that under the buy button on any website. And I guess it's good because it doesn't exactly well, is it good? It doesn't ban personalized pricing. Ooh, maybe should it be banned? I don't know. Should we have the freedom to screw with people like that? I don't know. I don't know where you fall on the. I mean, but at least label it. If somebody's just so rich, they're like, oh, screw it. But then it's also interesting because it's going to create this weird gamification where people probably go to a VPN and then they'll probably, or maybe they'll buy, users accounts that have made all sorts of extremely cheap purchases, and then that will actually save them money. And that's a way. Maybe there'll be people in other countries where they need money even more, and they'll just like set up accounts and like try to browse and find the cheapest things and put them in its carts. And then, who knows what it would lead to. But I do think we're entering a world where companies are going to get so good at profiling what you're willing to pay that it's going to be different than the past. I don't think we can just say that's going to be just cool. I think people are already just getting squozed so hard for necessities. It almost feels like a monopoly or a collusion in some way, like working against the average person. It feels to me like it breaks consumer rights, competition, and privacy, like all in one. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts. You think surveillance pricing is good and free market, and I'm being too hard on it? Next up, there's another new AI model. This one trained on, get this, prison phone calls. Yeah, kind of an interesting, data set. So AI system trained using years of recordings from prison phone calls is now being deployed to surveil inmates. This is happening. Transcribing their conversations, scanning them for keywords, and flagging calls that could indicate a planned crime. Now, to be clear, if you're in prison and you make a phone call, there always was the chance that a person could listen in. They're not like free calls. It's different than just mass surveillance of the general population, to be fair, but it can be trained on that data and probably deployed somewhere else, right? So instead of what used to be an occasional human review of a call, it aims for continuous automated surveillance of all inmate communication. Now, critics warn that this expanded invasive surveillance in jails and prisons raises concerns about privacy and legal privileges. They say that it creates a very opaque system with few clear limits on how the data is used. And others say it's a way to prevent crime, and these people are in jail because they've already lost some of their rights. And, we want them to not be committing crimes from inside prisons. And we've talked before about how Elon is thinking, I think, with the new Memphis, 3 that's coming online, the big data center that he's building. He might actually have the compute to read every single Twitter message every single day and personalize every single user's feed with it. So that would almost be kind of like the same system. But it's amazing how quickly this kind of AI-driven surveillance has just kicked in. I mean, every spoken word by, prisoners can be recorded, digitalized, and algorithmically analyzed for alleged misconduct implemented today. If you've got any hypes left, would you mind hitting that button? You can see my last video got pretty well hyped. I do appreciate that. I got 200 of you to hype, and it brought me way over the 100,000 hype point marks. And I think that made a difference. You can see it's in the upper half of my average. It made me almost $50. Had healthy watch time and view duration. Also, I got this from a Patreon subscriber. He had an idea for something we could all do together. So I was like, why not? I'll do it in this video. So his idea is that we all, as a community, ask one of whatever our favorite LLM is, this question. Based on our interactions, if you were to put an IQ on me, what would it be? And his theory is that it's going to tell all of us that we're above average because it's just kind of, sycophantic like that. Or do you think it will actually be a bell curve and it will be honest and say, oh, you're probably, on the lower quartile? Well, I'll put it to the test first, see what I get. All right, fingers crossed. All right, from our interactions, all right, it thinks that I'm curious. That's good. It's like literally my brand. Comfort with abstract questions. I just want a number as a response. Go ahead and take a guess. I understand it might not be right. Okay, I cannot give you a number even as a guess. All right, I guess it just doesn't do that. Yeah, fun idea for a challenge though. Actually, do you guys want one more article? There's this kind of crazy one that consciousness creates existence. Let's do it. All right, what do you think about this one? Consciousness as the foundation, a new theory addressing the nature of reality. Anika Holt wrote this. Pretty wild stuff. Edited by Gabby Clark. Reviewed by Robert Egan. All right, so this is a radical new theory presented by Maria Strom, professor of material science. Now, she normally conducts research in nanotechnology, but she decided to take big leap from the smallest scale to the very largest and propose an entirely new theory of the origin of the universe. And when questioned, is this a complete new theory of how reality and the universe are structured? She says, yes, you could say so. All of the above. It is a theory which consciousness comes first, and structures such as time, space, and matter all arise afterwards. All right, so reimagine everything. Imagine that all of reality comes from placing consciousness, not matter, not space, or time, at the foundation. So in this framework, everything we experience, space, time, matter, even life, they spring out of a universal field of consciousness. And everything that we consider physical reality comes secondary. Individual minds are part of a larger interconnected consciousness. The model claims to unify ideas from quantum physics with deep philosophical traditions and even offers testable predictions in physics, neuroscience, and cosmology. Okay, so the idea starts that the brain is the generator of consciousness. Is it going to be a dead end? Now, I'm not saying I believe this, but I'm just thinking through. If we at some point can't say that the brain generates consciousness, but rather there's a fundamental field, a basic layer of reality from which everything else arises, including our sense of self, our sense of you. So she frames all of this with three principles: a universal mind, which is a formless intelligence; a universal consciousness, which is the capacity for awareness; and a universal thought, which is the dynamic mechanism through which differentiation and experience emerge. So to me, universal thought would be the kind of the new thing, the dynamic mechanism which differentiation happens. And our individual mind or sense of self is just a localized expression or excitation of the single underlying field. But then again, it's like, why is this stuff like solid? You know what I mean? And like, why do I walk around in 3 dimensions? And like, why is time linear? Where does that emerge from? The brain is not creating consciousness. Instead, it would access or shape what's already fundamental. Consciousness wouldn't be an accident of chemistry or neurons. It would be woven into the fabric of reality itself. Mind first, matter second. Okay, so like, where does an atom come from? It's a bridge between quantum physics and non-duality, and those aren't fundamental. Of course, everything's built out of them, but they come from some kind of quantum thing that it's tapping into. I mean, it is weird that quantum computers exist. Like, they really do, in some way, like, travel. The wave is in all the places until we look at it. And when you look at it, the statistics all flatten out, and you can do math with that. So what you experience as a solid object is a kind of appearance, a macroscopic manifestation built on top of or out of this underlying conscious field. All right, let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think atoms might not be the bedrock of reality and instead consciousness is the bedrock? You know, I'm open to thinking about it. I'll see you in the next video.